So over the last few days, we've been looking at Jesus being fully man, one of the foundational beliefs for us as Christians. We looked at why it's important that Jesus was born of a virgin. We looked at the evidence from the Bible that Jesus was fully human, that he was somebody who had emotions, and he went through the same physical things that we went through. And then we've just looked at the idea that Jesus was without sin, and how Jesus wasn't some sort of superhuman, different person to us. Because sometimes I think as Christians we can sometimes think that Jesus was not the same as us. But very much the Bible wants to present Jesus as being fully human. And why is this important? The first reason it was really important is because it allowed Jesus to become our mediator. The Bible talks about Jesus being the mediator between us and God. A mediator is somebody who brokers a deal or brings two parties together who are at odds with each other and helps them to resolve a situation. Now, we've looked before that God didn't have to take the initiative towards us, but he did. It's as if God was reaching out a hand to us through Jesus saying, I want you to come back into relationship with us. And because Jesus was fully human, he could have a foot in both camps. He could understand what was going on for us as humans, but also understand the heart of God. And he was uniquely placed to bring parties together and to mediate and bring us back into reconciled relationship with God. Secondly, the reason that Jesus was fully human is so that he could be our example. In 1 Peter 2, we read that for God called you to do good, even if it means suffering, just as Christ did. He is our example and we must follow in his steps. Peter, who walked with Jesus, talked with Jesus, who met the risen Jesus, was saying to people who would follow, you need to follow Jesus' example. Jesus is our role model. He shows us how to live. And that's a tremendous sort of encouragement that we can live good lives. And Jesus modeled to us that it is possible to live lives victoriously. The third reason that Jesus was fully human is probably well explained in Hebrews. In Hebrews chapter 2, we read, surely it is not angels he helps, but Abraham's descendants. For this reason, he had to be made like them, like us, fully human in every way, in order that he might become a merciful and faithful high priest in service to God, and that he might make atonement for the sins of the people. Because he himself suffered when he was tempted, he is able to help those who are being tempted. In other words, Jesus became our substitute. It had to be a man to save man, but it had to be God to save humans as well. And otherwise, if Jesus wasn't fully human, he couldn't die in our place. And if he wasn't fully God, as we will go on to see, it wouldn't have been possible for him to do what was done. God is in the business of saving human beings. That's why he came to be our substitute, to take our place that we might be back in relationship with him. The fourth reason is that Jesus was able to become our representative. In Romans chapter 5 and verses 18 to 19, there's a discussion that because of what happened with Adam and Eve in the garden, so we all sort of inherited that guilt. We all inherited that sinful nature. And so if Adam represented us in the garden, Jesus coming and becoming man represents us before God. And by coming and being obedient in our place, is able to restore things, able to be our representative. In other words, when we were declared guilty, and where humanity failed, where Adam failed, Jesus was able to come and be successful and overcome and restore things back to the way they were meant to be. So I hope you're starting to see why it was really important that Jesus came as a human being, and why as Christians it's really foundational to what we believe. In fact, it was something that was being discussed just a few years after Jesus had died, and one of the things that was debated within the letters of the New Testament, if we look at 1 John and chapter 4, we see that there was a discussion where some people were claiming that Jesus just seemed to be human, that he wasn't really human, that his humanity came and left him at different places. And this was a heresy that was facing the early church. It was called docetism, in other words, which literally means it seems to be. And in 1 John 4, John writes, "This is how you can recognize the Spirit of God. Every spirit that acknowledges that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is from God. But every spirit that doesn't acknowledge Jesus is not from God. This is the spirit of the Antichrist." In other words, to deny Jesus is to deny something at the heart of what we believe as Christians, something that's foundational, and actually destroys something of the nature of the relationship we have with God. How amazing is it to think that God chose to set aside what he had in heaven and come to earth to identify with us for our sake? What does that do for how we choose to live? What does it do for how we choose to respond? And what difference would that make to you as you walk the Christian life?